this is rear fender number 2. This is a passenger fender. It's probably a little worse than the driver's. That's where the front of it, where the running board mounts up to it. It's all gone here. It's cracked there. But that's not too bad. It's good right here. There was a dent up here we hammered out. It's got issues here. It's just got a dent. That's the usual rot hole. And this is the mess. All down the rear of it. It's a little bit worse than the other one. This has been pushed in, so we gotta again get rid of this rod so we can pull that back out, cut all that out, replace it. But it's just nice and crusty, full of moss from sitting outside. But it's not too bad dent wise. So that's a good thing, just the rot. But it's the usual rot on these things, just a little bit worse on this one. We'll get started on it. Okay, so this is the front of the rear fender where the running board fits. I've cut out, that's part of it. And that was the other part that rotted away. And just quickly measured up. It's oversized. And then did a little bend. All we did is hand bend it, clamped it, and hammered it over a piece of steel, just because our brake is at my cousin's garage right now, so it's just easier to do it by hand. And then we'll go something like that. We'll just have to shrink this. That's where I made all these marks, just so I give myself an idea of where to shrink it. And we'll try and make the curve and then cut the excess off and weld her in. Okay, just shrinking it. We're using the small shrinker because this is just a 3/4 inch lip, so it should be fine. And I take little bites. Don't put too much pressure. You can always go over it a second time. I know at this end, as I made the marks closer in, so I know that has to be shrunk a little bit more and curved. So I put a little bit more pressure there. And I'll go over that again. That has to be shrunk some more. Getting there, just at the bottom here. Right here.
Good looking engine.
And we're getting there, as you can check on this side. Just down here, it needs to be curved a little bit more. So it's good to do small bites. There's still a little bit of springs, so I will curve it just a little bit more. There we go. Nice line inside. I left this damaged piece. It's rotted too, just give me an idea, but I'll eventually cut that off and replace it because it's rusted out too. But that'll give me a good template, and that fits pretty damn good. Don't have to force it in there. It just sits there, and then already have a decent gap here. Just became lucky, and then what I'll do is I'll just clamp it, and then I'll do this a little differently. Just take a cutting disc and go around there and go through both sheets, the metal, and it'll fit perfectly. Okay, doing this a little different than the other Fender. What we did is I tacked that. That had perfect height there, so I just tack that. It's clamped there. It's over here. It's overlapped here and overlapped there. So what I'm going to do is just run a grinder with a little thin disc all the way around there and around here, and then just clamp it, and it'll be flush welded instead of trying to take it off, grind it, cut it, each little and fit it in there. We tacked it in there where it's supposed to go, and then we'll just zip it and fit it in. That's that bad piece. So I will, that's an inner brace, so I'll just replace that piece. And it's all tack welded in. Just have to weld that all in. Grind it a little bit better on this side so that the tacks hold. And then we'll work on the inner brace after that. Yes, and the green engine.
Good looking engine.
Okay, so I just, that's the piece I just cut out. I just made a quick template bigger than it is out of sheet metal. And we'll use our brand new, well, not brand new, but reconditioned Beverly shear. My cousin ground and sharpened the blades on it, so maybe someday we'll actually get it painted too. But it works quite nicely. Of course, I'm probably doing it wrong. Backwards. Yeah, I'm doing it backwards. Okay, so I'll go this way. And I don't need to. What I'll do is I'll cut that. There. There. Now, it's a little big for right now, but let's cut that down. Alright, like that. So what we can do is make that flush there, tack it there, we can weld it there, and I can grind the edge, so it's perfect. Well, here we are working on the 52 Ford half ton again after another week off of it, doing other stuff, digging a hole. This is the first patch I showed you earlier. That's all done. I made the inside brace, which we'll get just tack welded in there, and then I've marked for running board holes. Just have to drill those. Then I've cut out that and made that, so that will slip and get welded into there. And then that's where the brace went to the stiffener that goes from the fender to the frame. And usually there's a bolt. I'll find yeah, that's the original one. It had a carriage bolt. I'm going to delete that. And just so basically this is the inner structure. That will get welded on there. Then I'll just weld a bolt in there, and you won't get any more rust behind here. And I'll clean that up and put rust paint in there, so that will prevent it from rusting anymore, and you won't have any holes that collect rust like that. Even though that's not rusted around there, it would have broken the paint, you see, and it's an indent, and I decided to delete it on this. And we're also working on door number 1, doing some body work. Right now we're trying to get the hinge pins off, and because we got new ones, and so we've heated them up and hammered them, and nothing's yet, so we're gonna be drilling them out. Very careful, of course. Okay, while I'm waiting to get all this welded in, the patch panels I've made, I still have this. This is the inside. As you can see right through it. That's the ugly one. Same with on the previous fender. Exact same thing. It's rusted all the way down to here, and it's also dented here. And in here, there's a metal bead in there. So I don't want to cut this out until I get this dent relatively back into this piece relatively back into shape, because if I start cutting this, I might not get this perfect, well, or even close to perfect. So what I've done is there's a crack there already, so I sliced it and peeled back the bead here, just to give me room or to pull out this. That's basically just to stiffen the back panel here. And that's the rear of the fender. So now with that gone, I can bend this back in the shape, hammer, dolly it, whatever I need to do, and then since it's cracked here, I can try and get this straight as possible before I cut out the rust. Okay, so what we did on the back here, the rear fender is, I did some pie cuts. I pulled out the stiffener brace. That allowed us to do some body work, hammer and dolly this out, get it into shape. It was that's where it was majorly cracked, and it was basically flexing, so we decided to hold it in place, weld that, tack that in there, and then I marked out where I'm going to cut it all the way over to there. So that was just, we tacked that just to sort of stabilize this, and then I'm going to keep this in there so when I cut this out, it doesn't flex all over the place, and then we know exactly where that's supposed to be. So I'll go out and grind that out right now. Hey, just doing some welding on the fender. Derek is, I should say. That's the lower portion of the rear fender where the fender brace to frame is. Just welding up the outside sheet metal. And we'll have to, this is the inside. that I made. That's just a brace, and we'll tack weld that modified bolt on there, and then there's the brace that's going on there, so that'll just something like that in the Fender. Saves me from drilling a hole in my new patch panel, and a much cleaner look. Okay, so I'm getting ready to do some final fitting and cutting on this final patch piece. I basically it's formed already. It's clamped in place. It's bigger than it needs to be right now. I always make things bigger, and you got room to maneuver it in case you screw up once. But I marked it with then I went in, so it's clamped in there roughly where it's going to go, or basically precisely where it's going to go. And then I took a paint pen and marked it along this edge and then up in here. And then when I pull the clamps off, you can see here, that's where it's on the outside of that. I will cut it, even cutting it slightly big, and then I will just test fit it some more. And if I have to do some grinding here and there, I'll just slowly grind down that until it fits perfectly on this edge, or there's a little gap just for welding. You could, it's on this, I decided not to, like, you could have just clamped it and then cut through both of these at the same time, but then you're dealing with a 90-degree angle, so it has to go, this panel has to go down and in. So if I did that, there would just still be issues, so I'm just going to do it this way. This way I've been doing it. Well, I've done a lot of patch panels that way. So yeah, I'll trim this down and start fitting it some more. We've got that patch panel that's on the inside, that's all done. And we got, where is it? That's our inner piece. That's just going to get, once this is all ground, that's going to be tacked into there, and you can get the idea of the brace, and that goes to the fender or the frame. That will work out quite nicely, but it still needs to be ground on the outside, and this one still needs to be ground a little bit on the inside and on the outside. So a lot of welding and grinding. We have to take little relief cuts on here because that was bent in bad, and when we tried to hammer it out and pull it out, it just started bending in here, and we didn't want to do that, so I relief cut it and we could move it easier, and we pulled out the steel brace that was in there too. There it is, and that'll get welded back in, or a new one, but I'll start fitting this piece. Okay. Okay, I've got all the outside ground. That's all going to be nice, just a minimum amount of filler. That's all welded in, ground. That's all welded in, ground. That's all ground. Ground, more grinding. This is a nice patch, even though 3/4 of it you won't see because it's where the fun or running boards mount to. And right now I'm working on the inner brace for this rusty piece. So, and since it's thick metal like I did with the other one, all I did was take a piece of angle iron, make some pie cuts, and then now I'll just hammer it so this curves up just like that piece. So I just gotta hammer it. Okay, so this brace is temporarily in there. You can see, I don't know if the light can see, well, from there I did several pie cuts and then just hammered it to curve it. You can see it fits fairly well. You can't fit anything into there. It's just lightly clamped with all the clamps. You don't want to clamp it too much or it'll just start warping this, since that's a thicker piece of angle iron. So all clamps are just lightly on there. I checked to see if it warped, and it didn't warp it when I clamped it, so we're all good to tack that in. And we're getting close to the end of this fender, I think. Hopefully. Oh yeah, I still have to put the bead in here. Weld up all these little cracks. Nice. Okay, the fender is done. Drill holes. Well, not done, but that's all done. We put a new steel bead in there. That's all done. Holes drilled. Now I just got to send it off to our stripping department, and he's going to strip all this moss off it, and that's all moss. He'll just use a stripping disc and strip that and wire wheel the inside, and we'll start body working on it and pour 15 inside. But there shouldn't be too much body work. There's still a few dents, but all the rust repair, I believe, is done on the truck. So let's go have a party.